Let's talk unicorns. And by unicorns, I mean acquiring a debt-free college degree. This isn't necessarily unicorn-worthy, but society would sure make you believe that it was. 40% of college graduates graduate without debt. That doesn't account for those who drop out, so the total number of people who start college and graduate debt-free would actually be significantly lower than 40%. I graduated debt-free with a $10 per hour job, and I'll tell you how. For my crazy approach to make any sense at all, we need to start at the beginning, and it comes down to mindset. You want to work backwards from what you want. So think about what kind of work-life balance, what kind of hours do you want to work, how much responsibility do you want to have? That comes with stress. And lastly, what kind of money do you want to be making? What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? And you need to support that with a given salary. A little disclaimer before we really get into the goods. All jobs are important. You might hear me say some things about certain jobs, but just know all jobs are important in their own way. Life is easier and more enjoyable without debt and without money problems. Because money problems have a tendency to cause divorce, relationship strain, depression, stress, all of these negative aspects. But money is not everything. Finding purpose and meaning are of ultimate importance and should really be considered. So let's start with some basics. Pay, or what you make, is equivalent to the value you add to the marketplace. I like to think of this as the guy who stocks the shelves versus the guy who organizes shelves. So the guy who stocks the shelves, right? He's going to replace the canned goods that consumers will purchase. So the value that that employee adds is equivalent to the number of cans sold that that employee replaced during his or her shift. Another factor that we need to consider with someone who stocks shelves is the replaceability of such a profession. I think there are a lot of people out there that are qualified to stock shelves, so you don't really bring a whole lot that's unique. You could be the person who organizes the shelves. Now this is where the real money comes into play, and that's because of concepts like putting milk in the back of the store. So you have to walk by all of these other non-essential goods to get the essential goods from the back of the store. Shelves are also organized with brand names, the more expensive products, at eye level. This is where most people look, therefore they're going to buy the more expensive item. End cap displays. These are those little things at the end of the aisles that have all the knick-knacky, convenient things that somehow make their way into your cart as you walk by them. Impulsive items at checkouts, your magazines, your gum, your chargers, chips, the snacky items, grab a Coke on the way out. The person who organizes the store with these techniques in mind, their value is related to the increased spending per customer. That could be another $50, $100 per person that comes into the store because they add the things that they wouldn't normally buy if all of their shopping list was located at the front of the store near the entrance. Let's take a look at some pretty easy math because you're going to hear me reference numbers throughout this and I want everything to make sense. There are 40 work hours per week and there are 52 weeks per year. That gives us 2,080 annual working hours. If someone makes $10 per hour at 2,080 annual working hours, or 2,000 hours, that's approximately $20,000 annually. So you take the hourly wage, $10, you double the 10 to 20,000 annually. So vice versa, if you made $50,000 per year, that would break down to $25 per hour. You may hear me reference those in either annual salary or hourly wage, but now we're on the same page. So, I digress. Back to college. Is college necessary? That's the first thing we need to ask ourselves. Does the career path that we're looking to go down require a degree? There's a few that do. If you want to become a teacher, if you want to become a professor, you need a degree. Most healthcare jobs require a degree to sit for boards. Lawyers works the same way. You need a degree. There's no way around it. Have to go to college to make those professions. Is formal education required? As in, do you need to go to a 4-year college? Can you go to a 2-year college? Can you go to a trade school? Is there a cheaper alternative to accomplishing the same goal of getting the job that you want? Does a degree accelerate or hinder your progress? Is it required for a management position? What is ultimately to be gained by having a degree? And think about, this is the shelf stocker versus the shelf organizer. Is a degree going to help you become the one who organizes the shelves? Now we need to think about cost versus income. Your STEM fields are a great example of a low cost to high income ratio. STEM standing for science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These are some of the highest paid fields coming out of college and are generally well worth the money. We also need to weigh the non-4-year degrees. Can we get an associate degree? Can we get some kind of technical school certificate? Also, remember that entrepreneurs, right, business owners, they don't need a degree. There's no formal requirement. However, a degree in business and some understanding may help progress a business growth faster or more efficiently, may give you some ins and outs, some additional considerations, but entrepreneurs are not required to have a degree. And lastly, think about jobs immune to technical innovation. These are your trade school jobs. We hear all of this AI coming down the pipeline, but I tell you what, there's not going to be a robot taking a welder's position anytime soon. Those guys have a pretty good gig. Same goes with plumbing, bricklayers, HVAC. No one is going to take those jobs. No machine is going to take that over in the next few years. So one of the things that I did, but I wish I would have done more of, and I would definitely recommend 100% that you go about this. Even if you've already got a college degree, this still works. I do it to this day. Talk to who can get you where you want to go. Anyone else is not worth talking to. Got to talk to the right people. So you say, how do I get a hold of the right people? Well, first of all, you can try cold calling. When I was working construction and knew I wanted to get into a graduate program, I cold called the director of the program that I was trying to get into. Over my lunch break, I rang the gentleman. I'm pretty sure I didn't even address him by doctor, which is his official title. And I said, hey, this is my name. This is where I'm at. What can I do to get into your program? And he, plain as day, laid out the next 3 or 4 years. And he said, when you get there, give me a call again and I'll tell you the next couple steps. So sure enough, that's what I did. The second time, I don't even think I introduced myself. I simply said, this is where I am, trying to get into your program. Now what do I need to do? And he said, hey, you're on a great path. That's exactly what we would recommend. And I'm thinking to myself this whole time, well, that's good because you actually told me this in person a few years prior. But he said, here's your next couple steps, and that's going to really set you up to get into our program in the near future. And I said, great, thank you very much. I look forward to speaking with you in person one day and not over these awkward lunchtime phone calls. So it's that easy. You can do it. It works surprisingly well. But most importantly, you have to do what they recommend. They give you the secrets, they give you the keys, but unless you actually do them and put them into action, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good. So we're talking to people who can get us where we want to go. The next thing we need to do is job shadow. We need to sit with whoever does whatever we want to do, and we need to be with them throughout the whole day. A lot of times from the outside looking in, we see this glamorous job, glamorous lifestyle. Well, we don't know the nitty gritty. We don't know what they actually do. We don't know what time they get up. We don't know what their job entails. Do they do a lot of paperwork? Do they do no paperwork? Do they get a lunch break? We don't know. What is their job flow like? How much do they talk to other people? Is it a cubicle job, or do they go around? Do they speak with people in the company, or do they speak with people other businesses looking to work with them. You don't know until you're really there. And I cannot stress this enough. One time doesn't cut it. I know that was one of the requirements when applying to my graduate program. They wanted a minimum of 6 job shouting experiences, and that's in person, all day, had to have it signed. They wanted to know that you were aware of what you were getting into, because college it's really a commitment, but not only for college. You need job shouting experience for any career you're going to pursue. Another way of doing this and kind of getting your foot in the door is through internships. Another good option. Sometimes they're paid, sometimes they're unpaid, but that's a good way to, again, get your name out there, foot in the door, see what it's like on the inside. Yeah, you're not going to be doing what your future career aspirations are. You get the stereotypical pushing papers and getting people coffee, and that's okay too. Everyone starts somewhere, but you got to get your foot in the door, got to get your name out there. And most importantly, with getting your name out there, is you need to stay in touch with these people. You need to thank them for their time. You need to openly communicate with them, keep in touch, be grateful for them letting you have an inside look at what they do. They'll appreciate the commitment. So, what can a college degree really get us? We already talked about some earlier. Job opportunities, specifically those requiring a degree for licensure. A college degree is proven to increase income over time, shows trainability, shows persistence, sticking with something long term. And college is limited to textbook content and not necessarily real world applications. And you'll find this more with some career choices than others on how much of your undergraduate content you actually use on a day-to-day basis. Drawbacks to a college degree. These are some big ones. These are oftentimes overlooked. You always hear the glamorous stuff, especially when you're in high school. You hear all the glamour about, oh, college, it's so good, it's so great. And then you go and you tour colleges and you see these ambassador type people showing you around like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. This is so cool. You're going to love this. Well, they never mention the drawbacks to a college degree. And when the drawbacks come up, there's always a solution, or so they say there's a solution. There's not always a solution, but they're going to tell you there is because they want you to go. And that's the bottom line. The ambassadors are salespeople, and coming out of high school, your school system looks good to others when a large percentage of high school students attend college and are successful. I digress. Drawbacks to college. The opportunity cost, which is cost plus lost income, because you're not going to be working as much, plus time, generally 4 years for an undergraduate degree. Because you're not working as much, if you so choose to have a job during college, the income's going to be limited. College requires discipline. You need social discipline. You can't be partying every night. Work-life balance. And it does require effort. Believe it or not, you actually have to study a little bit in college. If you show up to class, you can probably get C's. If you open your textbook once, you can maybe squeak out a B. But if you want A's in most disciplines, you actually need to put forth a little bit of effort. Another drawback is college is not capped at 4 years. A lot of people nowadays are taking more than 4 years for a 4-year program, and that brings a whole nother set of problems. Even worse than taking more than 4 years to graduate, you might not graduate at all, and that's a really expensive time, really expensive party, really expensive experience if you're paying for college credits and you don't have anything to show for it at the end. And ultimately, guys, it's a job. You need to treat it like one. I definitely didn't treat my undergraduate degree as seriously as my graduate program, but treat it like a job. Your future self will thank you. So let's start talking costs. Public education. This is going to vary a lot on state to state, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but generally, public education in state colleges for the 2020-2021 school year, your total cost is going to be at least $17,000 or $18,000. That could be a few thousand more depending on where you live. Midwest is generally cheaper than the coast. So Midwest, if you don't live there, out-of-state tuition, you're looking somewhere around $20,000 per year. That includes tuition, housing, meal plan, and books. And that's some data that I found based on a 15-credit semester, which is fairly typical. So Keep that in mind, about $20,000 per year, public education. Now you move into private education, this is all over the board. It's not going to be nearly as affordable. However, there will be more scholarships available. I'm seeing anywhere from $30,000 and up for private education per year. I mean, your tuition is going to be $25,000 plus alone. Some of the other fees and costs may be about the same, but your tuition is going to have huge increases. So really expect to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 per year, and that's not counting any sort of Ivy League, upper end, high echelon sort of colleges. That's a private school. So with that being said, we now know some of the costs. So back to opportunity costs. Remember, this is the time plus the lost wages. So the true cost of college, it's going to be the tuition plus the 4 years in school plus our lost wages. So we could say tuition is going to cost us $60,000, and then the other expenses, our housing, our meals, all that good stuff, is $30,000. Again, these are in-state numbers for cheap colleges in the Midwest. Tuition $60,000, housing $30,000, and then we could say we were making $35,000 per year. That's about $15 an hour, give or take. A little overtime maybe, but $15 an hour, pretty reasonable. So 4 years of lost wages at $35,000 a year, that brings us to $140,000 in lost wages. So not only are we paying $90,000 for school, but we have $140,000 in work we didn't complete because we were studying or should have been studying. It might have been partying, but we'll say we were studying. So our total opportunity cost, 4 years, that's if we graduate on time, and $230,000, almost $250,000 in 4 years. That's what college costs. Most people do not figure in the lost wages, the true opportunity cost of college. College is extremely expensive. Cannot stress how extremely expensive college is. So let's say you graduate making $55,000 a year, because in most places you're going to make between $35,000 and $75,000 per year. Exceptions, California, on the coast, you're going to make a little more. Cost of living is a little higher. Another story for another time. Let's say you make $55,000 a year. The break-even point versus making $35,000 per year is 20 years, or age 42. If you go to a private school and those costs go way up, your break-even point might be a little closer to 25 years, or age 47. That's unbelievable to think that you can be in your 40s and you haven't even seen the advancements from a college degree. Now keep in mind, this doesn't account for any interest on your student loans, which would make the break-even point longer, or pay raises, which would make the time shorter, considering that those with a college education would likely be in positions where they can seek advancements and make more money. But either way, you're talking 20 to 25 years for a break-even point. So, the college debt, what we started with, the average debt for all students who graduated, $16,000. Again, this is for graduates. So people who started, took a couple semesters, and didn't graduate, they are not figured in here. Also note that public school graduates have significantly lower debt than private university students. This is not surprising. Oftentimes you'll get a lot more scholarship opportunities at private institutions, but the scholarship opportunities do not offset the increased tuition. So, public school, generally the way to go. If you can get a full ride, can't argue with that, but just keep that in mind. Public universities, better bang for your buck. A couple scary statistics, because what would a talk be without a couple statistics? Overall dropout rate for undergraduate college students is 40%. 4 in 10. That's insane. Those are the number of people who are paying for college credits and have absolutely nothing to show for it. 30% of college freshmen drop out before their sophomore year. Unbelievable. And it also shows that people who start college at age 20 or later, so your non-traditional students, also have a higher dropout rate than those who go right into college. And we can talk about that later, because I always thought man, I'd like to keep my study habits and go right into school. But to be honest, your study habits don't carry over. You have a whole nother lifestyle in college than you do in high school. So you can take a year off and work and decide what you want to do before you go back to school. It won't negatively impact you as long as you know what you're doing, as long as you have a real goal in mind. So, with all these people dropping out, why are they dropping out? Well, the biggest reason, 38% say financial pressure. I don't blame them. College is expensive. 28%, 1 in 4, academic disqualification, didn't have enough mental horsepower, or more likely, didn't make the social change to hold down the grades, to not party every night of the week, to lock it down, couldn't do the adjustment. I would say that is a bigger factor than academic horsepower. 13% poor social fit, and a variety of other reasons to top us off. So, what is that college degree going to get you? We said $55,000 a year. Well, guess what? A 4-year degree is going to get you around $20 an hour when you graduate. If you have a 2-year degree, $15 an hour, which is $33,000 a year. More if you work overtime. No college, $13 an hour. Poverty rate by educational attainment. 1 in 4 people who did not finish high school will end up below the poverty line. If you finish high school, 12%. And those who graduate with a 4-year degree, 5% will end up below the poverty line. So significantly lower chances of being in poverty, the higher the education. 40% of graduates hold a job that does not require a college degree. So this goes back to our mindset. Think about what we want to do. If we're going to hold a job, whether that's our aspiration, and we don't know if that's what these people wanted to do. We don't know if this is the job they wanted or just the job they fell into. But either way, 40% of these graduates didn't need to go to college to have the same exact job they have now. That's crazy. And even more are working in fields that are not what they went to school for. I know tons of people personally that have a degree and are working in a different field. So again, not entirely worthless, because a degree does show some things. It shows some kind of mental acuity. It shows commitment. It shows social change, responsibility. It shows you can handle yourself. And I think employers, if you have a degree in a science field and take a job in a non-science field or vice versa, I think they do respect the fact that you have a degree, and that does count for something. It makes you stand out amongst applicants that do not have a degree. So, a couple more statistics. Income by education. If you have a high school diploma, averages $37,000 annually. So again, that accounts for a little bit of overtime, a little bit of weekend side hustle, night gig, whatever the case may be. So our estimate earlier of $35,000 annually for a high school diploma, if you were to work right out of high school, it's pretty accurate. 4-year undergraduate degree. Most people start between $45,000 and $60,000, with the average being at that top end about $60,000. Again, could be anywhere from $35,000 to $70,000, $75,000. Master's degree, it's going to bump you up to $73,000, and a doctoral degree, $90,000 annually. But remember, master's degree and doctoral degree, higher opportunity cost. It's more years, and those credits are also more expensive. So a lot of those degrees are going to cost you 6 figures to get into. So keep that in mind. Say, oh man, if I can make whatever, $60,000 with a 4-year degree or $70,000 with a master's degree, I mean, you better be thinking that there's some good hours or something that come with it, because if you're speaking just money, it might not be worth it. So to put this in perspective, we talked a lot about numbers, but where does that actually fall? So the national median household income from 2018 was $61,000. So if you have one person with a college degree making $60,000 a year, they are essentially at the national median. You're doing pretty well. Some percentiles, the 25th percentile for total housing income is $34,000. That means if you have 100 people in a room and you were the 25th percentile, that means 25 people would make less than you, 75 would make more than you. $34,000. So that high school graduate making $37,000 would be just above the 25th percentile. So often you hear about, oh man, he got a 6-figure job, 6-figure this, 6-figure that. Everybody makes 6 figures. Well, how many people make 6 figures? Excellent question. I have the answer. 66th percentile. That's where you would fall if you made $100,000 per year as a household, not an individual. This is 2 incomes. So, room of 100 people, you make more money than 66 of the 100 if you have a $100,000 household income. Double it, 200,000, you're now at the 90th percentile. And then the big bad 1%ers that you hear everybody talk about, 531,000 for the total household income. It's quite a bit, $500,000. It's pretty solid. So, we talked all about how much college costs, and we talked about some of the benefits, some of the cons, some of the financial aspects. So how do we pay for this? How do we get out of this? Back to the debt-free degree question that we started with. The best way that I found, I use some of, but not enough. I didn't take this part seriously enough. Scholarships. This is the most efficient use of time-generating income. There are very, very few scholarships after your freshman year. Get them while you're a senior in high school. Get them your freshman year of college. There are so many scholarships. There are merit-based scholarships. These are going to be your test scores, your grades. There are need or financial-based scholarships. There are athletic scholarships, career-specific scholarships, group identification or affiliation scholarships. These could be because of the state you live in, your religion. It could be a hometown thing. A lot of Chamber of Commerce or school board, they give out scholarships. And the cool thing about scholarships is they do not need to be repaid. Unlike some other forms we're going to talk about, scholarships are pretty sweet. Don't need to give them back. So back to the merit base, this is where your high school grades actually matter. So not only do you get money for your GPA, but you'll get arguably more money for your ACT or SAT scores. They are significantly higher weighted, which makes no sense to me because the ACT and SAT, they score a very narrow range of topics. And it's 4 hours on a Saturday. And that is weighed heavier than your GPA, which is over 4+ years of high school, depending on if you took some courses in 8th grade. So I don't understand how we weigh this 4 hours on a Saturday more than our GPA, which shows long-term academic work. But hey, I'm not the one who hands these out. So just know that take your ACT, SAT very seriously. That's where the big money's at. Grants. These are usually federal, and they are based on financial need. Federal grants influence college attendance. You can apply for any that you qualify for. Like scholarships, grants do not need to be repaid. Another approach to paying for college that I took advantage of and would have taken more advantage of if I would have known how sweet it was are AP and Clep credits. Anything that is a paid-for credit in high school that you receive some sort of credit for in college. AP credits, for example, otherwise known as advanced placement credits, are where you take an AP course in high school. This is followed by an AP test to ensure competency. Generally, you have to score a 3 out of 5. They have their own grading scale. And the cost is $95 per exam. This will cover 3 credits. These AP credits are good for 5 years. So if you don't go to school right away, not a problem. Clep, otherwise known as College Level Examination Program, works pretty similarly. They offer 34 exams and all kinds of common subjects. The cost is similar, $89 per exam, generally 3 credits. After you pass-fail these, it's listed as CR for credit. Sometimes the AP are actually translated into a grade, where the Clep credits typically do not affect your GPA, and it's sort of like a pass-fail. But the cool thing about the Clep is they're generally a little easier to pass. The cost is the same. And this is a great way to fill your elective courses because $89 per exam for 3 credits is way, way cheaper than what you're going to pay to college. So if you took a couple years of Spanish or French or German or whatever, or theology or anything like that, that would count as elective credits, Clep or AP, great place to go for those. And not to overlook the primary way I pay for college is to get a job. Just by working 20 hours per week it's been shown that students have better grades and time management. You can do stuff working for the college, such as a resident assistant or RA, sometimes a CA. This is generally a very small salary, but they include room and board, which can be a couple thousand a semester. Other things that you can do would be employee tuition reimbursement. You could work for a company that pays some of your tuition annually. Examples would be FedEx. They pay $2,500 annually. Home Depot, $1,500 annually. Verizon, they pay a whopping $4,000 annually. There's a whole list of companies, other ones, UPS, Starbucks. You can check online. Sometimes your parent's employer will even offer tuition assistance for you as a child. Pretty sweet. Might as well look into it. Again, that's a pretty big chunk annually. You generally have to work for these companies a few hours a week or part-time when you're going to school, but it's still well worth it if you consider a couple $1,000 a year as a bonus towards your education. So let's run an example. $80,000 to graduate debt-free. That's considering a $20,000 annual cost. It's close enough. It's on the lower end. You're going to a state school. So this is essentially how I did it at $10 an hour. Nowadays, wages are probably a little closer to $12 an hour, so that's what I use, and it'll give you a little gravy on the side. If you have a high school summer job at $12 an hour, and you work 40-hour weeks, so freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, and let's say you work 4 months over the summer, that gives you $8,000 a year and $32,000 over 4 years. So if you're working full-time in high school, that's what you can make, $32,000. And let's just say when you're in college, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, you're working at that same job, same $12 an hour, same 40-hour weeks. And if you work that all the way through 4 months per year, your summer's going to be a little longer during college, but you'll make another $8,000 per year or $32,000 over the course of your high school. So just by working summers, you can make about $65,000 over the 8 years from the time you're a freshman in high school to the time you graduate 4 years of college. Now let's step that up a notch. Let's say you take some of the advice from earlier and you work just a little bit during the week when you're at college, only at college, not in high school. We got sports, we have other things to do. But let's say you take a couple hours, 15 hours a week at the same $12 per hour job. And you do that for the other 8 months during the year. So you're working 4 months a year full time, 8 months a year, 15 hours per week. And those 8 months during the school year are going to get you about $6,000, which comes out to $24,000 over your college career. So we have $32,000 during high school, $32,000 during college summers, and $24,000 during college school year. That comes out to $90,000. Now keep in mind, this excludes taxes, overtime, pay increases. So with that, I upped my hours significantly above 40 hours per week, but I also wasn't making $12 an hour. I chose not only a construction day job that I worked Monday through Friday, but I also had a job that I work on the weekends, generally Friday nights, Saturday, Sundays, and that was pretty good. That kept me busy all summer long. So I was able to pull out a little more than what this example has, but it just goes to show you can make some pretty good money if you don't spend it on things, because college is your ultimate goal and that's what you save for. It can be done. Does it mean you don't get to have a lot of fun? Yeah, kinda. But it all depends on what's important to you. Having fun during high school, during college, or having fun afterwards and not being up to your eyeballs in debt. If you're not really into working, didn't qualify for a ton of scholarships, or even if you did qualify for a bunch of scholarships, the military is always a good option for paying for school. You have military academies, West Point, Annapolis, Colorado Springs, New London, Kings Point, all that good stuff. These places have mandatory service following graduation. So not only do you get school paid for, you're guaranteed a job. Good for you. You could also do an ROTC, Reserve Officers Training Corps, and this lets you start some of your service when you're in college. It's a pretty structured program. They kind of guide you on what courses to take, but it's another great option to pay for school. And ultimately, there's the GI Bill, and the rates of reimbursement are based on your service. This includes full-time and reserves. It varies quite a bit based on how much service time you have in and full-time or reserve, so you'll have to check in with some of your recruiters. They'll know about the GI Bill. Great option. You can get up to like $10,000 a semester. Pretty big money if you put your time in. So not only can you make more money going into college, but you can also spend less on college. The first thing and biggest thing we can think about for cutting costs is if college is even worth the time and the money. You can save 100% of the cost of college if you decide not to go. That is a real and true fact. You can also choose the school. Choose the cheapest institution you can. Yes, an in-state public school. That's the way to go. Sometimes they have reciprocity, and you can get in-state tuition at a nearby or nearby state. But anyway, look for in-state public schools. Regardless of what the private schools say, you do not get a better job most of the time. Cheapest education is the way to go. Take only the necessary credits, right? We don't need double majors, and please do not fail classes. Don't retake them. I mean, you just want to pass them the first time. Even if you don't get an A, like just pass it. Show up, open the textbook, go in and see the prof, whatever you have to do, pass the class. Live in the cheap dorms. Not only are they cheaper, but they are way more fun. Personal experience, another story for another time. And lastly, skip the bookstore. Buy or rent your books online. Get them somewhere else. The university has this amazing upcharge on everything. Sometimes you have to buy some lab manuals at the bookstore, and that's because your professor wrote them and they don't sell them online. But for 99% of your books, get them online. There's tons of places that deal, and oftentimes big universities will have a used textbook store adjacent to the campus. Check it out. It'll save you literally thousands of dollars. No one told me about this going into college. Now I don't even consider buying books new or from the school. Saved me thousands to this day. FAFSA. This is kind of the last resort if you can't pay for school. The free application for federal student aid. This is how you get money if you have no other way. FAFSA form available in October. You must complete it each year. It is free to complete, and it looks at the cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution, and that kicks out the amount you'll receive. So if your parents make a decent amount of money, regardless of how much they actually give you, the FAFSA form will assume they're giving you a set percentage. So if your family makes a lot of money, the FAFSA form is not going to give you much contribution. You'll have to cover more of it yourself. And it will give you either subsidized or unsubsidized student loans. And basically what that means is unsubsidized, they'll give you an interest rate, and subsidized, they'll give you an interest rate, but they will cover the interest rate for you. You will not be liable for that until after you graduate. Or sometimes they just give you a reduced interest rate. And let me say, the interest is brutal. I have no experience with this firsthand, but I know a lot of people who do have loans, and it is absolutely brutal. They're on the wrong side of compounding interest, and worst of all, it is unsecured debt. You cannot bankrupt student loans. I mean, it is like a parasite, man. You want nothing to do with that. Worst kind of debt, absolutely terrible. Now, a couple of realities that I want to touch on before we close it out here. No one cares about your expensive degree, not even your future employer. When I applied for my first job after my undergraduate degree, they just looked and they saw that I graduated, and that meant I could sit for boards, and I passed boards. And they're like, great, you did it. And they didn't ask anything about where I went to my undergrad. That was it. If you have student loans, pay them off. Again, they're like a parasite. And a harsh reality with that is no one is going to help you pay them off. It's entirely on you. I mean, we've seen the government try and have some programs to kick it back depending on what job you work in public service and all this and that. But I tell you what, it's not happening. The reality is the only one who's going to pay it off is you. Paying for school yourself versus having your parents pay for it will actually give you something to lose, right? You've got some skin in the game. If you're paying for your own tuition and you don't show up for class, man, that's you who eats that bill, that failed class, that, lost credits, not your parents. So for any parents or grandparents listening, careful with that cosign. Any kids listening, get to work, man. A lot of work to do. Long road ahead, but you can do it, man. I know you can. It can be done. People have done it. People will continue to do it even as college costs go up. Might get to have a few fewer luxuries, but you can do it. But most importantly, have a plan before you start. If you have to take a year off, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It'll give you time to put some money away. And not only that, you won't be wasting college credits on an area that you don't want to study. Because if you start, say, in arts field and you transition to science or vice versa, chances are that those credits are not going to transfer. Not only between schools, but between majors. They won't count. Sometimes you can get away with some general credits transferring, but man, I tell you what, you have to have specific credits for a certain degree. So know what you want to do before you get going. And in the workforce, your experience is greater than your degree. So if you're competing with someone who has 4 or 5 years of work experience and you're coming out of college and have no real world experience outside of 4 years of university, man, that's actually tough competition, and employers are going to be looking at that and considering it. So for those of you coming out of high school or not yet 20, there's going to be some things that your mom's going to tell you. She's going to tell you to go to class. And let me tell you what, you'll at least get C's if you go to class. She'll also tell you to get good grades. And if you study, open your textbooks, your shot at getting a B is pretty darn good. Don't party too much, especially during the week. This will cause you to miss class, and those can be expensive mistakes because you can refer to the first part about go to class, which you have to do to get C's. And don't get caught breaking the rules. Everyone breaks rules in college. It's okay. Just don't get caught. Treat it like a job. And you're going to be way happier with it. So I know I harped on college quite a bit. And it sounds like there's a lot of negatives to it. And there are if it's not approached in the right way. But at the end of the day, there's a few reasons we really should encourage college. And first of all, it is a real accomplishment. There's not a lot of people that do it. I think it puts you somewhere in the top 1% of education worldwide if you have a 4-year degree. It presents unique opportunities that you simply can't get if you don't go to college. You are generally surrounded by smart